Hi, we're Iron Revival, and this is our snatch guide.
Wait, let's do that again.
Okay.
I was when you said hi, I was like, let's just
Take two. Hi, we're Iron Revival, and this is our snatch guide. More specifically, a swing style, hard style snatch. Right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's get into it. What's the movement objective of our particular snatch that we're going to discuss here today?
Our particular snatch, the goal is to take a bell from the floor, swing it back between your legs, and with the form exactly the way we recommend, to take it and maneuver the bell over your head. That's what the movement objective is, to go from the floor, back between your legs, end up with the bell overhead. So as he said, specifically, it is a hardstyle snatch. And it is a swing snatch. So for those of you a little more versed in the kettlebell world, it's not a vertical, meaning it's not going to come straight up off the floor. That is an option. That's not what we're doing. It is not a kettlebell sports snatch. It's not a hybrid snatch. Okay, those are great techniques. We're just not going to be going over those today.
Should we show them one?
Sure.
I found a winner. Here it is, swing style, hard style snatch.
That's it.
Hey, what are we trying to do here?
So with a snatch, when we're choosing form, we have to mix any skill or any way we do a skill with a particular movement objective, or rather a training goal, is what I meant to say. So one of the most common, probably the most common goal for snatches is power production. It's teaching a human to move a kettlebell as quickly as possible. So that being the case, that is going to influence a lot of our technique. You can use the same style, the same technique in order to train endurance, let's say. Maybe a little different if you're trying to snatch something super heavy overhead. That's not what we're trying to do. Again, we're not going super long endurance. That's more the realm of kettlebell sport. So we're assuming that you want to move this bell as quickly as you possibly can to get it from the floor overhead. We're also assuming something about load. Again, when you're moving something heavy overhead, your form's probably going to change a little bit, but at very least it's going to be slow. So we're looking for a fast movement. So all of these things that we're going to recommend have to do with learning and training a hardstyle snatch. That is a swing snatch, not a dead snatch. We're also assuming that your goal is power production and that you're not going to go terribly heavy. You can use the same technique to go heavier, nothing wrong with that. But at a certain point, you're probably going to want to deviate if your goal is to just get something really, really heavy overhead. 3 zones.
What are they, and why would we use them?
So
3. Am I supposed to do that hand signal?
Let's do a take 2 here.
Okay. And take 2.
You're the one who was supposed to introduce them.
I know.
If you want to just have to ask, it's up to you.
All right, 3 zones. The power zone, the
friend zone, and the no-no zone.
Yeah. No.
How about you just introduce them and let me go?
3 zones. Roger, hit us with them.
The snatch in particular, specifically, but with other kettlebell ballistics, we like to evaluate and consider these movements in 3 different zones with different things happening at each. When you look at this 3-zone approach, you can understand what powers the move, what redirects the move, and how the move finishes. It's also a really good diagnostic tool. This 3-zone approach is designed to layer one zone on top of another. So a lot of coaches, let's say when you're working with the snatch, the lockout phase, that would be the last zone. They might talk about something unique to zone 3. We don't get to zone 3 until we evaluate zone 1 and zone 2. So this 3-zone approach is really useful for us. We're going to talk about each of these zones and what needs to happen there. So to give you a quick overview, the first zone is about power generation. Let's go ahead and just kind of show them. No need for a kettlebell. So as he's going through, he's taking his bell from the floor. He's going to hike it back. And this first zone is about making the kettlebell move. most of the power for the snatch comes from zone 1. So that's going to end right about there. We're going to talk about this position here. But this first zone, notice the kettlebell at this point is still roughly below the waist. That's where zone 1 is and what it does. It generates power and it's right around the waist or below. Zone 2 is going to redirect the kettlebell. So you're going to see him start to pull back and get ready, get that bell ready to start moving it overhead. Zone 2 is going to vary. We'll teach you how to evaluate that. But generally speaking, it's going to be from the waist till somewhere around between chest and shoulder, depending upon your dimensions. And zone 3 is going to be everything else. Zone 3 is where you lock out. So you have the power zone down here, you have the redirection zone in the middle, and then you have the lockout zone at the top. Different things need to happen in each place. And again, if you're going back and using this as a tool for evaluation, don't look at zone 2 or zone 3 until you've made sure that zone 1 is on point.
With all that being said, let's go ahead and start with zone 1, the power zone.
So zone 1, as we said before, is all about power. The hardest thing to get your head around with the swing, the snatch, the clean, any kettlebell ballistic is that the power comes from your legs. And even though you may know that in an abstract, theoretical way, it takes, in a lot of cases, years of training to really, really feel like, oh wait, haven't been using my legs like I thought I was. So the power zone is about putting force into the ground. Without the ground, the kettlebell doesn't move. And the easiest thing to put force into the ground with is your feet because they are right there.
They touch it.
They do, in most cases.
Except outer space.
So the power zone is about putting force into the floor. The things that we use are, we're going to forget about muscles. We're going to talk about hips and knees. Those are just very simple terms. We're not going to get bogged down into anatomy. Those are the things that when they contract, so if you go ahead and get into your stance
Is this way better?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
So you're going to notice that the knee is going to come back and the hip is going to come forward. That's going to cause a contraction of the muscles around the hips and the knees. And notice his pelvis comes forward. He comes up to this, what we'll call a vertical plank. It's common to hear it called a vertical plank. What's happening is the muscles contract. They push force into the ground. It spins his torso. His torso is connected to his arm. The kettlebell moves. Everybody's happy. We'll have a more thorough breakdown of the physics of this. But for now, just understand the power zone is about pushing your feet into the floor as hard as possible. You've probably heard that this branch of kettlebell ballistics, there are others like the push press and the jerk that are a lot more vertical, but you've probably heard that horizontal ballistics, so the swing, the snatch, the clean, they're about a hip hinge. We don't deal with a hip hinge strategy. Not saying it's wrong, we just don't evaluate it that way. You do need hips. You do need knees. You need both. It's not a one or the other. They're both valuable. You will find that some people are better at using more hip. So this guy's got long legs, shorter torso. He's going to be really able to get way back here.
Okay.
Because there we go. Because he's got those long legs. I don't have legs as long. So I'm not going to be
You might be able to tell in the video.
So I'm not going to be able to get back as far. So what we're looking at is there's going to be some horizontal and some vertical. And let's say we use this arbitrary number of 10. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's say 10 represents the total number, the total movement number. And let's say you're going to be a 7 horizontal and a 3 vertical, meaning more horizontal than vertical. Let's say I'm going to be a 6 and a 4, but the other way. I'm going to be more vertical. I'm going to be 6 vertical, 4 horizontal. So we're going to have different ways that we're going to generate force. The form is going to basically be the same either way, but you do want to evaluate and understand people according to their own body dimensions. Another thing to consider, commonly it's taught that the swing, the snatch, and the clean should all have the same hip drive. We don't teach that. We don't think it makes sense for some people. For Jeremiah, probably going to look very similar. But again, he has a lot of horizontal that he can power that he can produce, and he may not have a choice. I'm going to have more of a choice because my legs and my torso are a little more aligned. So I can do more vertical, I can do more horizontal. But the decision for us comes down to the movement objective, which is why we started there. The goal is to bring a kettlebell from there to there. Yes, you need your hips in the swing snatch to power it.
Yeah.
But the more horizontal force I project, at least in excess of what I need, it's just going to make that redirection harder. So yes, I want that power, but if too much power is going to make it difficult, and if I potentially shorten the distance my hips travel back and give myself more room to go up with the knees, I may benefit from using a little more vertical trajectory. I may benefit from using, you know, quads as opposed to glutes. So this is going to be an individual choice. Nothing wrong with using as much hips in all three, or the same amount rather. Maybe a little bit different for each person.
Let's talk about the sequence for things that go on in zone 1.
Okay.
Perfect.
Really, really important technique point. It's okay to see the hips and the knees moving moving at the same time, finishing at the same time. Some people, again, it's going to be easier if you've got a little more balance. This guy, you're going to see his hips travel before his knees. With me, you're probably going to see them closer to the same time. What we want to consider is that there are two different trajectories or lines of force with the snatch. One is bringing things horizontal, one is bringing things vertically. The hips traveling forward is going to impart horizontal trajectory, the knees bending and the arm redirecting the bell in turn, some of that horizontal trajectory is going to make everything go vertically. So we want to consider both of those pieces as essential to get the kettlebell from the ground, swing it back between your legs, and end up getting it overhead. So the sequence is going to be important when we look at even the science. I'm not going to get too bogged down in studies, but when you take this kettlebell, let's say, go ahead and go to the top. Let's say we're on snatch number 2. So we're on snatch number 2. So he's pulling that arm, in down from the lockout phase, and he's bringing this kettlebell back. Now, that snatch started way up here. So there is what's called gravitational potential energy. If you were to let that bell just fall, there'd be a lot of energy stored in it as it goes down to the ground. That bell is going to fall, and he's going to actively hike it back behind him. That's going to load the hips. Specifically, it's going to load the hamstrings. They've done studies, and in the back of the swing, when it's done this way, those hamstrings are really going to fire. The elasticity of those hamstrings is going to fire the hips forward, and that horizontal trajectory is going to get going first. So it's going to be hips, and then right about here, you're going to see his hip is close to not his knee, but his foot. Now he can actually straighten his knees, and when he straightens his knees, it actually continues to extend his hip or push his knees or his hip forward. If he comes back down here and he tries knees first, you see this raise, he's not generating a lot of power. What's going to happen is he's losing some of that vertical trajectory. First of all, not moving the bell at all. You see his arms not moving much. But then what he's going to need to do is he's going to need to bring his hips forward from here. He's probably going to have to use his back. He's not going to have great leverage in this position. So we want to think hips, then knees. So hip, knee, or go ahead and try it. Hip, knee. Either way, if you can see, even when he goes fast, because his legs are long, he's gonna go hip, knee. Okay, it's how he's built. But they can finish at the same time too. But really important, you do not want to see the knees starting to extend before the hips have really traveled well forward. And the research on it was actually a swing research, I believe, an article, but did show that the hamstrings are going to get loaded first. The glutes aren't really going to kick in until later on in the process, later on in the swing or the snatch. But you definitely want to have those knees driving hard into the ground. And we see very, very commonly this obsession with the hips, and people forget about pushing force down into the ground. Again, without force down into the ground, a snatch does not happen. So you want to look at the sequence. Hips come forward, knees straighten, force is going down into the ground. Okay, as much as possible, that force goes down to the ground. We look at just basic Newton's physics, equal and opposite reaction. So all the force that he's pushing down pushes back up into him. That's the force that's going to use. He's going to use to snatch the kettlebell. One thing that we want to talk about is where you should end zone 1. What does zone 1 ending look like? This is what we teach. So he's going to go hips, then he's going to go knees. Now he's already, well, let's do it this way. If this were a swing, if you're finishing a swing, notice that arm is straight down. Go ahead and just go through like a pretend swing. So he doesn't need to redirect the bell. The arm can be straight down. Further, the swing is about horizontal trajectory. Yes, there has to be some vertical because the bell is actually going higher and lower, but for the most part, you're training horizontal trajectory, horizontal force production, so you don't need to worry about redirecting that bell. However, in the snatch, the goal of the snatch is to bring the arm overhead. So as he stands, if you can see, there's an angle between his forearm and the body. It's not straight down like that. He's got a little angle, and what that corresponds to, go ahead and give me a good squeeze, elbow into your rib cage. What's going on is he's keeping that arm tight to his body. As you can see, if he doesn't start to move that back and that arm is way out here, what he has to do is he has to pull. He's got to pull that bell back. The reason why we keep the arm close is because we limit that horizontal trajectory. If he has this straight arm and then he starts to swing, do a normal swing arm, but then he pulls, it's very inefficient. He brings the arm way out here just to bring it here. So what we recommend is as you're standing up and you're reviewing, let's say you're reviewing video, you should have this little angle here because what's going on is you're already starting your pull, okay? And you're not actively pulling at this point. All you're doing is like I said, give me a good squeeze. You're keeping your elbow in tight to the body. That's gonna make it a lot easier. If by the time you finish your snatch, your arm is straight, you've already lost. You're already pulling too late. That bell's gonna start getting away from you. So you wanna get a jump on it right away. So as soon as you stand up, which is the end of zone 1, that vertical plank, so ankles, knees, hips, torso's engaged, you should already start to see that pull happening. And if you don't, you're probably a little late. There are other ways to do it. This is not how we teach it.
To recap zone 1, we're going to start in our position, determining how far back horizontally you want to go with your hips in relation to your knees. We're going to hike the bell high using our force pressing through the ground. We're going to use the sequence of hips, then knees. So your hips are going to come up, knees are going to come up. When you finish, your arm is going to be tight to your body with this slight angle right here, ready for the redirect in zone 2. How about that?
Worked.
Okay.
The hips are going to come forward and the knees are going to straighten, but I think they get it.
Okay. Let's talk about zone 2, the redirect. Now that we've powered ourselves into position, we got to get that bell overhead and we need to figure out how to do that. Enlighten us.
We do. So let's get you to the side here. We have already generated so much force that if he were to let go of the bell with a simple redirect, it's going to keep going over his head. He has already generated 99.9% of all the power he needs to make that snatch happen. That all happens in the legs. We have ended here with this arm pressing into the body. This is not an active pull per se. He's not actively bringing his elbow back like this, bring your elbow straight back. He's not doing this. What he's doing is, imagine I'm the kettlebell and he's just not letting me win. He's keeping that bell as close to his body as he can. As the bell starts to rise, and as soon as we see that fist get in line with his elbow, we can do an active pull now because he wants to keep the hand here and he wants to be able to redirect it overhead. We're going to talk about zone 3, but for now, what we're doing is we're getting this bell closer to his body. So as it comes out, you can see there's a little bit of a gap between the bell and his hip. He wants to minimize that. He wants to diminish it almost entirely. And one way to do that is to give it a quick yank. Really important here, you can probably see a little better from the front. If the arm comes out here, go ahead and go through your power phase again and pause. So if we look right here, this is in front of his body and this is totally normal because there is some diagonal from the floor to where this needs to be in your arm that you need to cover. If he pulls back right here, 1, his shoulder's probably going to tip forward, but 2, he's jamming his elbow here. 3, he's probably also going to hit himself in the stomach with the kettlebell, which is probably not comfortable. So what we want is if you want to actually pull around, okay, whatever you're using, you're going to use some bicep, you're going to use some lat. Simple drill that we do is we just trace the collarbone. You can do it with 2 arms at a time, 1 arm at a time. But what he's doing, if you turn to the side, you can see as he pulls, that shoulder's not dumping forward. He's getting his elbow around his body. He's getting ready to punch up. So when he does that really quick pull, that hard pull, he's not jamming himself. And if you've ever jammed your wrist with a kettlebell during a pull, a clean, a snatch, it's very uncomfortable. So this pulling around the body helps with that. So that's the pull, that's the redirect, or that's a big part of the redirect.
Cool. Let's lean with it.
Is that another reference?
Rock with it.
Oh, okay.
It is another reference. But anyways, we're going to talk about the lean. It's important to use this lean to get yourself some more room and help you transition into zone 3. So where am I leaning?
You're leaning back. We have a movement objective. Again, we're moving the kettlebell between the legs and overhead. We want to get that path as close as possible. We want to make it as efficient as possible. We want to cover as much ground as possible. If he brings that kettlebell from here and he brings it straight up, he's going to punch himself in the face with it.
Yikes.
I won't go as far as saying a lean is mandatory. Some people may be able to do it. It's harder with a low pull unless you pull way around your body. Some people will do that. Some people are built that way. But for a lot of people, if we lean through the ankle, now we're not talking about the torso disengaging. What we're talking about is as we're leaning, you don't need to pull the arm completely back to keep it close. You can pull the arm back to right around there and go ahead and trust fall.
Oh, okay.
So he can get a little, not quite this much, but he can lean back as the bell rises and then push underneath it as zone 3 begins. So a lean is acceptable in order to get your body out of the way of the kettlebell. Again, the kettlebell it's a monstrous ball of iron that is screaming through the air. You probably want to get out of its way. Perfectly correct to lean through the ankles as long as the body doesn't disengage. The heavier the bell, the faster the bell, the more natural the lean is going to feel. When you have a ton of force going that way, it's going to be really easy. Grab my wrist, grab my wrist, grab my wrist. It's going to be easy to lean back. That's kind of how it's going to feel. And then you're going to be able to push underneath it. So lean through the ankles, keep that connected. The lean is really meant to get you out of the way of the bell. And then you're going to be able to push back underneath it in zone 3, which we're going to go over next.
All right, now you've gotten through zone 2. Let's talk about it real quick. We've already done our power phase. Zone 1. Right about here, the bell's going to be going up and we're going to redirect. So we're keeping our arm tight to our body. Once the fist gets about parallel or slightly above the elbow, you're going to pull around your body. And if necessary, give yourself that lean back to create the room and redirect. Let's get into zone 3, the lockout.
The lockout.
All right, let's do it. Let's go all the way.
We're going all
to
the
the
way.
top.
So an important question I have for you is, where do you keep your nipples?
Well, my nipples might be differently located than yours.
They are.
Some are on the side, some are in the front, some are high, some are low.
So,
wait, low, high?
Yeah,
Okay,
either
anyways.
way. We are making fun of those who say silly things. There is kettlebell advice that talks about landmarks, which we don't like. He's probably less angry, gets less angry about it than I do. When we talk about landmarks, they're different on everyone. We have read anything ranging from start your punch up around your nipples to start your punch up around the level of your eyeballs. My favorite is when people talk about punching up at a particular level and then you watch them do a video and they punch up at a much lower level. That's the best.
All right.
We don't know where you're going to punch up. We don't know where you keep your nipples. If you want to send us photos, then maybe we would be able to give you some advice.
There's the email right here.
But
fellas.
but barring that, we want you to figure out where your punch up needs to be. And this goes back to another drill another concept we have called rehearsal. Rehearsal is not a perfect idea because you're going through things slowly that are really meant to be done quickly, and it's not going to be exact. But bottom line, if you go through phase 1, and then we go through phase 2, okay? What we're gonna see is if he continues with phase 2, it's gonna end with his arm roughly vertical. He's gonna yank that elbow back, okay? And then he's going to start to punch it forward at the right time. When this arm gets up to this point, he's now able to do that. You don't want to start a punch up here because he's not under the bell yet. That's not strong. But another inch punch up, that's strong. So what you want to see is as this arm goes back and then you start to come up into your lockout phase, you want to see where the arm naturally lies. So as you can see here, my guess is his nipples are there.
Probably where these nipple rings are.
His eyes are there, his chin is there. This is roughly the level of, let's call it his shoulder, his chest. This is where he is. This is all going to be contingent upon the length of his torso, the length of his forearm, and the relationship of the two. I happen to know that he has a really short torso and really long forearms.
We measured it.
We did. So it sounds like a weird thing to do.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever.
We're weird guys.
But so what you can obviously see that his punch up needs to happen at a different place. So all we recommend you do is go through these phases. Okay, and as you pull, the arm starts to come up. This is the end of phase 2. You want to see what that height is. We recommend you punching up as soon as possible. Again, we want to make sure that the knuckles are going to be pointed at the sky. If you're here and you start to punch up, or if you're here and you start to punch up, that's all arm, that becomes a front raise. You may have started it with your legs, but you're going to end up pulling all the way through. Not going to be a great snatch. So you want to pull as low as possible, get that arm in tight. Okay, so maybe there's a little lean, and as soon as he reaches that point, he can punch and finish the punch with a lean forward. So the idea here is to punch up quickly. People talk about the bell banging, the bell bangs your wrist, and people almost always attribute it to gripping the handle too tight. I rarely see people gripping the handle too tight. Most people who don't snatch well don't have good grip strength. They don't have enough strength to actually grip the bell. Yes, they do look nervous and they're gripping hard, but it's not hard relative to
the rest of what's going on.
Because they're not strong enough to do that. Generally, what we see is a failure to generate proper power and then a slow punch. So we have this kettlebell that's being redirected. So we've generated the force with the legs. We've used the arm to redirect it and get it close to the body. Now we're going to punch up as quickly as we possibly can. We have two bodies here. Technically, the kettlebell and you are going to be integrated as one. So you're going to have physical properties that are shared. But the goal of redirection is to get the hand under the bell and to offset that mass. So let's say he's using, that's a 28 kilogram kettlebell. So his arm does not weigh 28 kilograms, but he's gonna offset that weight, okay? One, by generating a lot of power through his legs, because the bell should effectively be weightless at this point because he's generated enough force with his legs. But by going quickly, he's going to be able to offset the mass. When you look at the physics equations, the faster you can make something go, or if you make something go fast, it can offset the mass that's pulling it down. So what we're looking at for zone 3 really is just redirecting, finishing zone 2, okay? Letting the arm come up, do your rehearsal to see where that is, okay? He's leaned out of the way, and as he starts to punch, he goes up and you can see him leaning back in at the top. He leans in under the bell. That's also going to help him with the lockout. Rather than just pushing the bell up with his arm, he can actually use his body to shove underneath that bell and get a stronger lockout position.
So after you've redirected the bell in zone 2, we're going to talk about the lockout in zone 3. So remember, you're coming up, you're pulling the bell with your arm close to the body, right about that time when your fist gets about parallel or just higher than the elbow, you're going to, with the lean back if you need it, you're going to punch up as soon as possible. Now, how do you find out? Remember, it's with the rehearsal. So as you go through your rehearsal, slower, controlled, you see when you get under the bell, right about here, this is where you want to start your punch. as quickly as possible and as soon as possible. Remember, you've also got that lean to help you out. So as you get under it and you go into your lockout, you're leaning back, also help you with a stronger lockout. That pretty much covers zone 3. We're at the top. We got to get down. I'm not getting down. You're just up there, rest of your life, hold that kettlebell up. All right, so let's get into the drop. That's probably one of the most important phases. So how are we going to do that? Snoop. Drop it like it's hot. All right, anyways, let's go.
Should stop doing
All right,
that.
I'm going to cut it out there. All right, let's talk about the drop, Roger. We got to get from the top back down.
We do. So let's go overhead. So this is our high-tech snatch simulation here. So we need to take this bell and pull it straight down. Now, again, the lean. If he brings the bell straight down, he's going to hit his head. He doesn't want to do that. So very commonly, he can start a lean, the same amount that he did to get it overhead. He's going to pull his elbow straight down. Now, what we commonly will see is a strategy where this elbow wings out, and people try to accelerate the bell through internally rotating at the shoulder. Some degree, this is normal. Part of it is going to be dictated by mobility of the shoulder. So you're still almost always going to see on most people a little bit of this. We're really talking about degree. In an ideal world, what we want to see is go ahead and pull straight down into my hand. So he's using his lat. You feel your lat there?
Oh yeah.
So this is a strong position. He can do a lot of accelerating with the bell. He keeps it closer. This is a healthier position for his shoulder. So go ahead and internally rotate. Okay. You can generate force here, but this is a very, I don't want to push too hard because I don't want to yank your shoulder out, but this is a
bad shoulder.
This is a weak position. So what we want is we want a lean back. We want to pull the elbow straight down. We want to keep this arm close. Now at the top, what you're going to see is a flip. That bell is going to flip forward and it's going to start its roll. A lot of people want to do the drop without doing the flip. And then the bell just comes straight down. It doesn't start a nice path. You'll actually feel it feels really weird and it gets really slow and it will actually get caught on your arm if you bring it straight down rather than flipping in front of you. So you're going to do a flip, pull, lean. Now, when you're getting, we want to basically go through the same steps. We want to reverse it. Now, keeping the bell path tight like this and pulling straight down is going to feel slower than a long bell path. That long bell path allows more gravitational potential energy. It allows more distance for the bell to accelerate on its own, so it's going to feel easier. The problem is it can be really hard on your shoulders, really hard to control, and as you get into high volume snatching, it's when we tend to see problems with hands, with elbows, with shoulders, with backs, whatever. Plus, the farther this thing gets away from your midline, the more torque it's going to be able to apply to your spine. So we want to go nice. We want to go nice and vertical here. As he gets here, what he needs to do is bring this arm down, reintegrate it with his body, get that connection. When he's right around here, when that arm is reconnected to his body, he's going to actively push back into his hips. Okay? Now, the difference is what a lot of people are going to do, is they're going to let that bell drop. And there's going to be like a momentary kind of soggy spot. It's not going to be very strong. What we want is, and you can try a partner drill if you've got a partner, you want someone to actively push the hips back into you. Okay? So you see how he's pushing me away? As that bell comes down and redirects, he's actually pushing his hips into me. That's going to generate a lot more force. It's going to pull the bell back. So yes, you have some potential energy there, but you have this active control. The arm connecting the bell to the body keeps everything nice and safe. And then once it starts to go down and reconnect, he can actively pull that bell back. It's going to go a lot faster. It's going to have a lot more power. He's going to be ready for his second snatch.
Turn around. Jeez Louise. Every now and again.
Okay, so there's going to be a phase in a lot of ballistics, a moment where one, in this case, snatch stops and another one starts. That's going to be what we call the turnaround. And from the side, it's going to be where you're going to see his arm come back down in this hike position. And it's going to be right around here, nice and high. This is the turnaround. What we want to see is as soon as he hits As soon as he hits the back, right now his hamstrings are stretched. Come up just a little bit. Come up just a little bit. What we want to see, as soon as he comes down, he's immediately going to go right back up. Okay? There should be almost no pause between the stretching. As he flexes his hip, he's going to stretch his hip extensor. Okay? As soon as he feels that stretch, boom, right back the other way. What a lot of people will do, and you want to watch the bell, what will happen is the bell will actually fall. It'll go vertically and it'll disconnect a little bit. People will get a grip on it again, and then they'll go into their next snatch. You want to watch that turnaround. It should be really, really tight. There should be very little motion of the body, very little motion of the hand, very little motion of the bell. You can even watch the direction that the bell is pointing. The flat of the bell should come straight down and point down at the angle you just brought it back down on. If you see the bell pointing up toward the sky, or if you see the bell pointing down toward the ground, you probably don't have a good turnaround. You just want to work on timing the timing the moment between when one snatch ends and the other begins. The active hips will do a really good job of minimizing that turnaround time, because as you actively pull the hips back, you're stretching the hamstrings, they're ready to go. As soon as you feel that arm reconnect, somewhere right around the thigh, boom, right back the other way.
There you have it. This is your basic starting point for our hardstyle snatch with the swing involved, okay? We are going to do some ancillary videos with some drills and some other specifics that you can use to tighten up your snatch. But for now, start with this. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions by commenting below or hitting us up on all the social sites. Wherever you see us, you know how to find us. And let's go ahead and show them a couple of snatches. Okay. These better be good. There you go. Snatch away. And as always, stay strong.